Hello everybody, welcome on in if you guys are new, welcome on back if you're not, if you watched the very first video, welcome on back. Hello, Donnie here, and this is gonna be, I have like a few that I've already written about some books that I've done, or like I've listened to or read. I think like the first couple of videos that I'm gonna be doing are going to be audiobooks from what I noticed, because so far at this time, I've listened to 3 audiobooks, and I think this entire like first playlist might be just audiobooks because I've gotten quite used to just because I also run a small business where I crochet stuff and make candles. So I think like the entire first season of book reviews might just be audiobooks. I don't know. We'll see how things go. So, and just I had it in advance, because I think I spoke about it in the welcome to my channel video. There are going to be a lot of spoilers in several of these books that I talk about, just to kind of make you guys aware, like, hey, this is something that I'm going to talk about. There's going to be spoilers. If you guys don't want to listen to the spoilers because you haven't read it yet or listened to it yet, I would highly recommend hopping off and be like, oh, let me do my thing where I'll either listen to it or read it, and come back when you guys have your own bias or opinion about each book that I have either listened to or read to myself. This is just my opinion on each book, so I'm gonna try to do more. How do you call it? I'm gonna try to make sure I give you guys a warning that there's gonna be spoilers, a crap ton of them. And if you guys don't care about the spoilers, or you've already listened or read into any of the books that I've listened to or read to, and I'm talking about it in each video, and you just want to like sit back, relax, and listen, hey, okay, buckle up. So in this video, we're going to be talking about Woman Down by Colleen Hoover. And as you guys could tell, I do like these things where I write initial thoughts about each book that I finish. And regardless of whether or not I've listened to it or actually read it, I will still do like an initial like kind of like report of how I felt about it. And then these videos are kind of like hey, I let some time, like I gave myself some time to sit on it and just let it kind of ferment a little bit, kind of like how you would let like beer or like wine ferment a little bit, and kind of, you know, we're gonna get into it. Okay, so I decided to kind of bring up at least the Goodreads version of it so we could talk about it a little bit. So this is Colleen Hoover's newest book from my understanding, and it was first published in January 13th of this year. So it's like several months ago, but I was able to listen to it about 2 weeks ago, and as of right now, it's sitting at 3.47 out of 5. And mind you, this is the first Colleen Hoover book that I've ever read, and like as you guys can see here, like I gave it 2 stars. Okay. Now, the reason I'm gonna get to it when I get to it. There's like there's a lot to really get into this book, and it's kind of like it felt very too real, at least to me, and all that stuff. And based off like the summary of what I see on what's written for this book, it says her words used to set the page on fire, but a viral backlash over her latest film adaptation forced Petra Rose to take a hiatus, resulting in missed deadlines and an overdue mortgage. Branded a fraud on and fame-hungry opportunist, she learned the hard way that hard way what happens when the internet turns on you, and she's been uninspired to write ever since. Now, with her next suspense novel outline and savings nearly gone, she retreats to a secluded lakeside cabin, hoping to find inspiration. It's Petra's last-ditch attempt to save her career, and herself. Then he shows up. Detective Nathaniel Saint arrives with disturbing news, her presence igniting a creativity in her that she thought long since burned out. Petra's words return in a rush, and her fictional cop character begins to mirror the very real cop who's becoming her muse. Their research sessions blurred the lines between fantasy and reality. Each glance, every touch pulls Petra deeper into a world she thought she'd never lose herself in again. She's never felt more alive, but inspiration this powerful comes at a cost. When Saint starts taking his role in her career a little too seriously, Petra's forced to confront the chaos she's created. But doing so could cost her more than the reputation she's been trying to salvage. The reputation the world wrote for her, the reputation only she can reclaim. So that's kind of the summary of what this book is all about. And when I say it feels a little too little too real, it really does feel a little too real. And it kind of, with this summary alone, you can tell, like, I felt a little uncomfortable somewhere along the lines where, like, this Nathaniel Saint character kind of put in when it comes to the position of Petra Rose and, like, what she thinks is fictional versus, like, what is actually real. And for me, it just kind of felt a little bit too much for me. I only decided to finish reading it to see, like, how serious are we talking about? I needed to know the full story, and I pretty much got fully invested into the story, mainly because this story, I was like, okay, I only know just one gist of the full information. Like, how serious is are the topics that are covered into the story as a whole? So I can actually list you the characters here, which Petra Rose is the main female character, who's an author. Nathaniel Saint, who's supposedly a police detective, and when I do this, I mean, like, in air quotes, because we'll get to that when we get to that. Nora is Petra Rose's friend, who is also an author herself. And then we have Shepard, who is Petra's husband, that we find out later on. Then we have, like, Petra's kids named Andy and Chloe. They're both her daughters. Then we have Louis Longsetter, who is the owner of the rental that Petra's renting out, renting the cabin from. And then Marigold, or Mary, is Louis' wife, and has also kind of given actually sat down, like, was kind of, like, also played a bit of a role into, like, convincing Petra to kind of do what she wanted to with this situation. And I was like, oh, this is kind of crazy how, everybody had a role and she didn't know anything about what was going on behind closed doors until she was like, wait a minute, something's not adding up here. And it was all about Louis and the guy who ran the gas station, who played a minor role into this book. Both were like, yeah, we don't recognize this dude at all. And that was what Petra was like, okay, who the hell is this dude? Why am I meeting a guy by the name of Nathaniel Saint, and just finding out that he's not actually a cop in this town? What is going on? Like, she was confused. Anyway, let me get into the full scope of things, right? Okay, so it kind of, looking back to the beginning of the book, we notice that Petra is traveling to a town where this town is normally a place where she goes to and rent out a cabin and kind of uses it as an escape from her life as a, like life outside of like LA and stuff like that. And she uses this as sort of like a writing retreat, and she normally gets this cabin that is where the windows face west towards the sun. It's, I think like the sun setting or something like that. And this time around, she doesn't get the actual regular cabin that she normally gets. And at this point, I think, from what I remember, there was like a year and a half where she hasn't written any books. She is listening into a podcast that was literally shading, like, kind of like dragging the recent book that she posted up a while back, where it got a movie adaptation. And the reason why people were shading, like dragging the movie adaptation, was because the book was all about a love triangle. And in the movie format, apparently the director went into the route of, hey, we're gonna cut one of the characters out. And like this character was the main pivotal part of the entire story, where the main female character in that book was going to choose this guy. And now that without this guy, the movie adaptation of this book was not received well. And the director had sent in a screenshot to this podcast to show, oh, she agreed that this was allowed. Here's my side of the story. And they kind of pivoted to where it was like the author was the one that like agreed that it should be a thing, right? Instead of like putting in more to the story as a whole. She gets there, and like she's speaking to Nora, her like best writing buddy, and she's talking about this thing, and then she was like, hey, why don't you do a live stream with me? Like, how do you want, like, do you want to, like, how do you want to do it? And Petra's like, hey, I wouldn't, like, she gets convinced to do this live stream as long as she's not the one that's reading the questions. She's telling Nora, I want you to choose the right questions for me if you want me to be on this live stream. Right? That was the whole premise. That's the whole start of the story within like a day or within a few days, right? Obviously, Louis, prior to like this conversation, Louis was the one that showed her like how this entire cabin was remodeled and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, like this is the interesting start, like pretty interesting world building. And like all of this is happening within like the first 20 to 25% of the book, like first fifth to the quarter part of the book, where she's getting her bearings. She's trying to see like how the entire like cabin is looked. She's talking to Nora. They set up a live stream where Nora is the one that's reading out questions to Petra, like the safe ones, right? The safe ones. And there was a specific question where I'm not gonna say the exact words because like I wouldn't remember, like I'm not remembering the exact words, but the premise of what was exactly said was about whether or not the books that she writes is based off of on reality. And Petra is saying, I've never really written books that are based off of real life, but it would be interesting to like write something that's based off of real life. Now, that was like one of the last questions that was said. And, after some time of trying to get through this writer's block, she's finally like, you know what? I want to get some sleep. She goes to sleep, and somewhere in the middle of the night, she wakes up to red and blue lights. Right? Right? And then she hears a knock at the door. She goes to this door, and in comes a police officer. Guess who's the police officer? Nathaniel Saint. Now, at first, she's like, oh my god, this dude is hot. This dude's good looking. I feel so underdressed compared, like, when seeing him. And I was like, okay, you are in your 30s. Why are you thinking like this? And I'm like, it just feels like, it's kind of feels like one of those things where it's just people having a huge insecurity about, like, how they are when they're finding a guy that's finding a person that could potentially be a significant other, just finding them so attractive. It's like a difference to what they're normally accustomed to, right? And she's like in her robes and stuff, and he's like telling her, like, oh, there was like a chase, and the guy stopped nearby the house, and your house, and he kind of offed himself. Trigger warning, yes, this was the whole premise of why he actually showed up. And she was like, okay. And then he gives her his card where it has two different numbers. One of them is actually his cell number. And it's crazy that, like, something like this is happening, where he's like, I'll try to come back tomorrow if you need to reach out to me, let me know. I don't mind answering, like, any other questions that you might think of at, like, moving forward. And she was like, okay. And he leaves. I think she ends up writing something because she realizes, like, this dude is my muse. I feel something about this dude. This dude is giving me the type of vibe, like, I need to write about this dude ASAP. So she writes a little bit of something, and then she falls asleep. She wakes up. She's talking to Mary, who comes to her house. Mary, we're gonna call her Mary. She comes to to the cabin, and she's like asking questions about all this stuff, like, oh, I heard about the whole thing. They came to my house too. It was so saddening to hear about something like that, and what have you. And she ends up contacting Nathaniel, and he comes over to the place, and she's like they go into talking about, like, how this entire how, like, she's trying to get him to come over to ask about, like, what cops do and stuff, and he's like trying to get more information about this book, and she's telling him, like, some of the first things of what the cop does to the lawyer, which is the female character in her book that she's currently writing while she's there. Oh, the first thing that they do is make out. And then he's getting a bunch of phone calls, and she's like, aren't you gonna get that? He was like, no, I'm gonna enjoy this a little bit longer. They're continuously kissing, and then he finally backs away. He looks at his phone, and he was like, I gotta get going, and then he leaves. Almost exactly of how the entire premise of the book, the starting of the book is. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, yeah, all right, that seems interesting. We don't get to know, like, this is pretty early on. This is, like, long before we find out, hey, you're cheating on your husband and shit. But, like, well, we'll get to that when we get to that, right? They meet another couple of times before she explains to him, Petra explains to Nathaniel about how they meet at a bar, and they end up eating food in her car before they go, like, part ways and stuff for the time being. He was like, oh, cool, that seems interesting. Would you like to go to a bar the town over? I know a place that we can go to. She was like, alright. And mind you, this is in the midst of, like, a makeout session. I was like, what in the world? I think I don't have that much of a spicy life. That got me thinking. Like, I don't have much of a spicy life. Like, what do you mean? And then the night that she finally meets him at a bar, she's called, instead of Nathaniel calling Petra by her name, he's calling her based on her character's name, and I'm like, and she's just as confused as I am. Like, why? Oh, what in the world? What are we thinking here? Like, I'm like, if I wanted to role play, I would have said like, oh, let's role play. She not once did she ever say she wanted to role play her character in this book, in the book that she's writing. Not once. He's going along with it. And then at one point she talks about, like, he's trying to get more information about this book. She's up to this point where apparently the character in the book she's writing gets there's like a break-in and she gets tied up to a chair. And mind you, they have their drinks, they finish their drinks, they get food, they're eating it in her car, and then at some point he takes her out of the car momentarily to kiss her and shit. Then and then he after a bit they let go of each other and then they go their own separate ways. And then somehow he tries to reenact the break-in because she goes onto her laptop to try to write the book. She's like tappity tappity tap, falls asleep. She wakes up with her laptop still near her, but then she realizes something's wrong. Why are all the lights out? Last time I checked, the lights weren't always... Not all the lights were out. What's going on? There was a break-in. She's trying to fight the person who is breaking into her house. And she's like, see? And like she could hear the dude's voice different. And then she's like trying to like fight him off, trying to call the cops. And then you know what he does? He grabs her, ties her up with rope, goes into the other room where the kitchen area and stuff like that, is trying to look for something, and then left. She, all the while, all at the same time, she's freaking the hell out. I'm just like... And then she finally finds a way after a couple minutes to try to get herself out. Somehow she got herself out most of the way through. And then she finally hears Saint calling out for her, and she's like, and she's freaking out. And she's not able to like walk properly because I think at that time I think her feet were still tied up, and I'm just like, are we going to ignore what the fuck is going on? Like, and he comes in, helps her get untied, and she's like, it was you, wasn't it? It could have only been you. And he was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Oh, she's freaking out. She was like, get the hell away from me. Like, basically, she's like telling him, get the F out. Leave me the F alone. And like, she ends up, the lights are still not working because he found a way to like turn the lights in the entire place out. She finds her way to the bathroom, gets butt ass naked, and then just goes in and like turns on the shower and just like she's in the corner of the shower crying while the shower's running, and he comes in, he's like trying to like calm her down and things like that. He's getting wet, and you know, like after a bit she forgives this dude. If I ever find out that somebody did and I didn't ask for this, I'm gonna find a way to put a TRO on your ass, call the police, press charges. Sorry about but I'm gonna find a way to get your literally I would ask you to leave immediately. Red flag automatically. 3 strikes, you're out. That was all 3 strikes. I do not care. Nope. No. There's also this thing where they finally agreed that they will talk about whether or not they should do any other things where like if they wanted to do a scene they would have to talk about it first, communication. I'm just like, you you weird, you weird SOB, like why are you letting him like why are you, why now, like you could have just talked about this beforehand. I thought it was implied that you guys would have to talk about it before you actually do it. Like it doesn't make any sense that after this whole thing happened and you're scared, like literally scared shitless, you're shaking and stuff, that you to finally communicate with each other and say, oh, we're not going to do anything unless we both agree that this is something that we should do. And eventually at some point in time, I don't think I wrote it on here, but like at some point in time, they do the deed. They do the deed on her couch. After all this time, he put you in a scary situation, and you're literally hyperventilating and shit. You decide to let him do the deed on you on your couch in the cabin. My bad for assuming that there should be stricter boundaries than that. Okay. A bit of time goes by, right? And suddenly, one of the days that he was going to show up to the place, mind you, so I can't remember exactly whether it was like before or after the whole scene where they smash. Apparently she's trying to follow him to find out where like who his wife is. He was like, don't. I think it was like I think like sometime after like they do the deed, and she's trying to follow him to find out like how his wife looks like and stuff. He's like, stop, like they stopped. He stopped her halfway through. For this kind of clarification, where he stopped her like at a clearing near a forest, and like they were riding in separate cars. They meet at that clearing. He was like, stop following me, and somehow he's like using his hand to like play with her, and he leaves her with an orgasm, like after the orgasm, and like he leaves. I was like, ain't no way you did that in public. I got boundaries. I did. That put me in an uncomfortable. I bit my tongue. That put me in an uncomfortable situation. So much so that I just bit my tongue. And then one day, like sometime after this entire thing happened, like they were doing it every other day. I'm not sure if they were doing different positions. I don't know. I did kind of like tune myself out on that part of the story. But at some point, Shepard, who is Petra Rose's husband, along with her two kids, Andy and Chloe, show up to the cabin. She's freaking out. She's texting Nathaniel like, hey, don't come over. My husband and two kids are coming over. Guess what he did? Guess what Nathaniel did? Shows up. And instead of outing her as somebody who was cheating on her husband, he's like, you know, you have to have a sticker to come here and park here. That was a lie, but like that was his way of like showing authority, saying, I know you were lying to me. Like he was like, I want to see who he is. I want to see who he is. And she lies for him too. Like she's like, yeah, no, I totally forgot that this was a thing. It just recently changed. It's like, and her husband's like, okay, you know, I was leaving early tomorrow morning anyway. Tell me how. Not too long, like a little bit before they do their nightly routine, she's texting Nathaniel behind Shepard's back, and you know what Nathaniel told Petra. He was like, bitch, which made this even more crazier because I would never. That is so. I don't think I would ever put myself in that type of situation, where Nathaniel. The last thing Nathaniel told Petra was, "I want you to write. I want you to think of me when you're writing him." Huh? Why? Ain't no way that's fake. Nah, you can't say that's fake to me. No, no, cause there's some freaky mofos out there that would say something like that. I could imagine it too. If you come here in New Jersey, New York area, oh, you're probably gonna meet someone like that. Not someone in like what explains as like Nathaniel's age, was like late 30s or late 40s. You're gonna meet someone that's like in their 50s or 60s, saying some type of random stuff like that. Like I can guarantee there's at least one mofo in their 60s saying that to someone who's in their 30s that is married, saying that to them, that like the guy's the sneaky link. Like, hello? What's even worse is that, there's a window in the room, and like when she's writing her husband Shepard, she could look out the window. Guess who's standing there outside, watching her writing her husband. You can. It's obvious. I'm gonna let you guess for a moment. Nathaniel. Weird, weird behavior. What? Oh, brother. Cause ain't no way that he's like expecting you to ride on your husband, and then lo and behold, he's watching you from outside that window that you're facing, and like that like turns you on even more. You're imagining that it's him that you're riding. I don't know what's worse, the fact that she's cheating, or the fact that she's like doing this while being watched by the same man that she's cheating on her husband with. It's like, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. It just, and then on top of that, like, what makes it even weirder was the fact that as soon as her husband and her two daughters leave to go back to where they lived, he somehow sneaks into the house. The dude's like Casper the Friendly Ghost, except he's not friendly at all. He's an obsessive man that wants to just simply let you ride on him for inspiration. Like, he's kind of like the bard, but worse. Like, from D&D. I kid you not. Mind you, that's not even the entire thing that's happening. That's like just I would say around the halfway point of like all the stuff that he's done so far. I would say around halfway to like 60%. And like so like at the same day that like they were like, and what happens as soon as he pops up, he's like, "I want you to go into that shower and wash him off before I have my way with you." I'm gonna try to keep this PJ, and like this is like verbatim, mostly like almost exactly what he said. He pulls her to like the bathroom, into the shower. He grabs this thing, like this kind of like this thing that shoots out water, but it's like kind of like a wand, and like he puts it in her, which is crazy. It's very graphic. I'm gonna try to put in a graphic warning on the title and the description. But it's like very graphic, and then he has his way with her, and like on that same day that he's having his way with her, she's like, "Oh, I have to go back to my home to like celebrate one of my kids' birthdays. I'm gonna be away for a little bit, for a few days. I'm gonna be back though for another like week or two." And she like, if goes to flash forward, it goes into flash forward, fast forward. It goes into like when she's like back at her home doing the birthday celebration. Nora's there, a few other people that she knows is there, her husband, her kids, and all that stuff. And then she gets a text message from Nathaniel, and she's immediately like, huh? Huh? And she goes and sees his car outside, like not too far off in the distance. And then she's like, ain't no way this dude actually showed up to my house. And she goes into his car, and she was like, what are you doing here? I thought you say, and he was like, oh, I just want to see how you're doing, you know, kind of keep a watchful eye. She was like, didn't you tell me that you didn't want to come to, you didn't want me to follow you in case of knowing who your wife is? Didn't you kind of prevent me from coming to your place? Why are you at my place? And you actually did the same thing that I tried to do. You told me not to follow you. Why are you at my house? He was like, but I wanted to know if you were okay and things like that. He basically stalked her ass. Like, what? What? Obviously, he tells her to leave. She tells him to leave, and like she gets out of the car. He leaves, and then she comes back to the cabin after like she celebrates one of her children's birthdays, and that's when shit really hits the fan. And she's like, and so like when she comes back, they agreed like that she was gonna cook him dinner. As she was going to get dinner, she stops at the gas station to fill up her gas tank, and she's like, I'm kind of curious, where is, like, she's curious about like the like kind of like whatever happened to the events, and like every week it like the magazine and newspaper gets updated of current events of what happens. Now this is where the story gets very interesting. At this point, it gets to a point where she asks the gas station attendant, like, hey, you know, where's the, is the newspaper the most recent? He was like, yeah, as recent as it can, like it just got updated like this past week, like just early this week. And she was like, well, I don't see the thing that happened, like the car chase with the dude where he ended up offing himself. And he was like, where exactly was this? She was like, she tells him exactly where it was. I forgot the road. And he was like, no, that didn't happen. When I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. Suddenly things aren't adding up. Anyway, it gets to a point where she finds out from the station attendant. Like, she secretly took a picture of him without his knowledge, and she shows the gas station attendant a picture of Nathaniel. Now, at first he's like looking at, like, he was like, oh, this dude looks familiar, but he's not someone I know that's from this town. She was like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh yeah, no, this dude's not from this town. He came into town a few days ago, like a while back, but as far as I know, he's not from this town. She was like, but he's a police detective. He was like, no, he's not. Then Louis comes in. And if you guys don't know, earlier, Louis is the person who owns the rental that Petra's renting the cabin from. And he's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, hey, what's going on, to Petra and the gas station attendant. And she's like, hey, do you recognize this dude? And she tells him his name from what she was told. He was like, oh yeah, no, I know everybody. That's not somebody from around here. And she was like, are you sure? Because like he's saying he's a detective from this town. He's like, there's only 2 police officers in the entire police station. Neither one of them looks that good. He roasted the police department that he's that's like some savage shit, but also in an honest way. You know, that's just crazy to me. Anyway, she's like she feels like all the color drained from her face, and like she goes back home to the she goes back and she meets up with Mary, because all this time while she's there, she's like getting to know Mary a little bit, which is Louis' wife, and she's like asking him like, who is he? And then she's like, look, look, like he told me he paid me $100 to lie to your face about the whole thing. He's actually not a police officer. He's some dude that, like, he said he knew you, and that this was all part of the act. Like, $100 is $100. Because if you guys don't know, Mary is an actress, or was an actress at some point, and she doesn't, like, she finds this entire town so boring. So boring. So when she saw when she went to walk up to this person who's named Nathaniel, supposedly, on air quotes, she was like, what's going on here? And he was like, please play along with this entire story. She was like, she asked for it, like, this is all part of like a thing for that her and I are doing. We know each other. Here's $100, right? Here's $100. Play along. And she was like, okay. And you know what? You know what happened? Louis comes in and Louis, the owner of the rental, realizes something is going on. He has to come back. He comes back and he's like, whatever you did to Petra, I want to have no part of it. But whatever you did, you better fix it, because I do not want to get sued. Because, like, obviously, if you're doing a rental, like, obviously, if you're trying to make an honest living from like doing rentals and like letting people stay at these rentals, you don't want to get sued for something your significant other did, right? So what ended up happening was Petra told her, I want a full refund. A full refund. And I'm leaving right the heck now. So I'm leaving, like, today's my last day. I'm leaving after this. So she starts packing everything up. And she then, like, as soon as she gets home, she, like, to the rental, she's looking this dude up. Can't find anything. And then she pays to do a background check on this dude based on the picture and based off the number that she has. And she finds out that Nathaniel's name is not actually Nathaniel Saint's name is not actually Nathaniel Saint, but rather a dude named Eric, who is a screenwriter from LA. What? What? And what's even crazier is that once she finds out the information, she's like making sure she's grabbing all their stuff, and then as she's trying to walk out, Nathaniel, aka Eric, is there. He's there. He's like, I guess you found out who I really am. And she's like, yeah, why the heck did you lie? He was like, because you asked for it. I was like, what do you mean I asked for it? And he's like, remember that live stream that you did like a while back? She was like, yeah, but I wasn't trying to say that I wanted it for real. That was only implied. What? She was like, yeah, no, I wanted to do it for, like, you asked for it, basically. I was like, no, the hell I didn't. And then she's like, don't ever contact me again. And she blocks his number. Like, as she leaves, she gets into her car, she packs up everything and goes into her car. She blocks his number, you know, like, as she left. And some time passes by, like a couple months. The book's out officially. And she, you know, is starting to do this book tour. And lo and behold, when the book tour, she's on the book tour, while there, she sees him at the Q&A part. And She's scared shitless. He asks a question. Forgot what the question was. She answers it as best she could without freaking the heck out. And at the book signing part, he comes with a book. He's like, "Can you make it out to Saint?" She like she writes a like pretty petty like thing in the thing. She's like, as like, you know, like any sane person or a sane individual would have done, like, hey, here's like a petty ass thing that I'm gonna put into the thing. She closes the book kind of hard. She gives it to him, and he leaves. But here's another twist that I didn't even know. Nora recognizes him. She's smiling. She walks up to them. They walk outside, and as she finishes the whole book signing thing, before she signs all the extra books that she was gonna sign for the bookstore she's at, she walks out. She sees them, and she's like, "What's going on here?" Basically, and they were like, "Look, I asked them to kind of just become your inspiration. I just asked them to come over and like talk to you about the whole thing. I'm really sorry about that." And she was like, "I want you to stay as far of him." And then Petra's like telling to Nora, "I want you to stay as far away from him as possible. I do not want you to talk to him." She was like, "What happened? What happened?" That's when Petra realized that Nathaniel, or aka Eric, didn't tell her the whole story. He didn't tell her the part where he took advantage of like her, like took advantage of the situation and essentially had like an affair with Petra. Like allowed Petra to have an affair with Shepard, you know, by sleeping with him during her time at this small town in the rental. And she couldn't talk, like at that point she's like, "I can't talk to her anymore. Like I can't talk to her the same. It's gonna take a while." Right? And she comes back to the hotel and she's not, you know, giving Nora the time of day. She's like trying to tolerate it at this point. Like it's like the friendship is kind of like, at that point the friendship is mostly gone at that point because like she betrayed her trust, right? And on the last part of the entire book, and like mind you, the title of that she put in for the Petra Rose put in for that book is the same title as this book, which is Woman Down, but it's written by her instead of Colleen Hoover. In the last thing that the last bit of thing that has happened leading up to the story ending was she received an email of a booking on the cabin that she normally gets. It's outside the one that she had to get because the one that she normally gets wasn't available. Apparently she got a booking that was prepaid of the cabin that she normally rents out for books, to write her books, and she was like, I didn't pay for this. This has to be a mistake. I didn't pay for this cabin. What the fuck is going on? Excuse my language. Then she received, not even like a full minute or so later, she gets an email from like a random email that she's never recognized before, and it stated, I hope you like the rental. I'm hoping that you find more inspiration and continue on inspiration. It was kind of something like, I hope that you can find more inspiration in the future while we're there. And it's from Nathaniel, aka Eric. And that's where the book leaves off. Oh my gosh, what the heck? Now, the reason why I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads was not because of how bad it was structured, but the way, and this is some final thoughts kind of things. The reason why I gave this 2 out of 5 stars was not because of how, like, of the structure of the book and like how the story kind of progressed. It was the way where it kind of felt like it was kind of like a tug and pull, where like it tugged you to like a very dramatic moment and then pulled you away back to normalcy. And like eventually, like the tug and pull kind of environment where it's like, oh shit, it's tugging you into a dramatic moment, and then finally pulling you back to normalcy, started to get more elaborate, started to become bigger, and it actually became a little bit too much. It felt too real for this to be something that was like just like a work of fiction. And if you ever either read the book or listened to the book, she does mention in the author's footnote that this is completely fictional. This actually didn't happen. It feels like it did happen. Cause ain't no way you're gonna write a book about this woman who cheats on her husband with a guy whom she thought was a detective at this small town, but then lo and behold, oh yeah, no, he lied. It was all a setup from like her closest friend to kind of give her inspiration, but even she didn't know that how far they were going. And even the owner of the cabin's like wife didn't fully know what was going on either. She was paid to lie to her too. So everybody either didn't know either weren't a part of the entire situation or were part of it but didn't know what was going on between the two of them. And it just felt so real and so uncomfortable that I couldn't say that, like, to me it was like it just made me feel uncomfortable. That's why I gave it 2 stars. It was so uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know if I can handle another Colleen Hoover book right away. Like, I don't think I ever would. I don't know. I don't know if I ever would. And the fact that she's like, oh, this is a work of fiction. I'm like, it doesn't feel like fiction. It feels like real shit. Maybe the characters are probably fictional, but like the actions that went on within this book doesn't feel fake. It really doesn't. And you're telling me it's all fake? Ain't no way. Ain't no way. I was pissed at that. No, cause like how you make it seem like this dude is like obsessed with her, because the intercourse was amazing, the coitus was amazing between the both of them, and then at some point she's like not putting in like a TRO at least, or anything like that against them. Like you're making like having her like this is a whole cat and mouse chase. No, I refuse to believe it, that this was a thing, that it was like completely fake, because it feels real as hell. What? Look, it's one thing to kind of write a story like that. It's one thing to write a story that's like actually fictional, but but it's another thing if you write a story and it's very triggering, especially to some people who have been kind of felt like they were used in such a manner, and kind of this is very traumatizing moment in certain parts throughout the story. Like, you can't write something like that and then be like, oh, this is such a good book. No, to me it was like it felt like kind of like a story where it's like there was a whole bunch of trauma into it. You can't write a book about trauma by doing that. Like, you have to, like, there has to be some good into it. And that ending just felt like it wasn't a good ending. It felt like he wanted to continue the situation, and she hasn't thought about filing a police report against this dude. Like, she hasn't done that. I wonder why she didn't do. I think it's because like she's trying to save face, try to keep her personal life outside of her professional life. But there's only so much you can do to keeping those separate before you have no choice but to do that. and you can't keep a secret from your husband either. And it's just like, to me, it just feels like she's not trying to protect herself, right? I much rather protect myself than keeping certain things quiet, um certain things that like were traumatic quiet, because I, again, this is like, this was kind of like an example of, the story was, it felt like an example of somebody being traumatized by being consistently lied to throughout this entire ordeal, and it just doesn't feel like something that should be kept in the dark. This should have been like a story about her contacting the police, her putting in the TRO against them, at least filing a police report, what have you. It just felt very scary in the end. And as like, and I can understand why it involves mystery, thriller, romance. Like, I understand mystery, suspense, but like, I feel like as though they should have been at least something good out of it, instead of just leaving us all off in a cliffhanger. Because I'm not gonna be like, if there's gonna be a second book to the story, no, no, not gonna read it. Probably am, not gonna lie, but like at this current time, no, I'm good. Bye bye. No, the fuck, no, I'm not gonna read something like that, bro. That made me so uncomfortable. I wanted to throw up for a second there. I almost punched this wall right here to my right, like where this, just where the, you see this poster right here. Yeah, I almost punched a wall, a hole underneath it. I almost tried to, at least. That's how pissed off I was. No, nope, it's gonna be a while before I ever listen to another Colleen Hoover book. It's gonna be a while. Yep. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about this, entire thing. And dude, I've recorded like about an hour already of this thing. I think that's all I have to say about it. Like, you guys could see like how pissed off I was. Like, when I initially wrote this like initial like report of this thing, mind you, I have 2 other books I would have to like talk about after this one. When I did this initial Hebrew thingamajiggy, I literally was writing it to make sure I didn't punch a hole in my wall. Like, that's how much more pissed I was then versus I am now. Because if I probably would have cried. Not gonna lie. Because that's how much, that's how traumatic it was. I was like, that's how angry I was too. I was like, I felt like I was gonna cry, punch a hole in the wall, what have you. Anyway, I think I can leave it off of here in a particularly interesting note, where even though I gave it 2 stars, I was invested to finishing it in the end, because I don't like to put certain things at DNF, or for those of you guys who probably don't know what DNF is, it's called did not finish. I don't like putting books in the DNF pile, right? I like to listen it from start to finish, or read it from start to finish, even if it takes me a while to finish it. So yeah, like I love like listening to audiobooks, reading books, what have you, whenever I get the chance to. And this was kind of one of those good starts to this book reviews like series I wanna do. And hopefully when I do the next one, hopefully you guys find it a little bit more interesting than this one, like my take on it. But anyway, I hope you guys like, subscribe, and comment. And if you reach to the end of the video, I would like to ask you what kind of book recommendations you would like to give me, so that I could look into it and maybe start either listening to it or reading it myself. I would still love to learn, like, know, like, different books and things like that. And as I'm starting to get out of, like, the whole standalone series, at this point in time, I still have a couple of books that I am either reading or listening to, whether it's, like, an ebook, a physical book or an audiobook. I am going to do my best to kind of keep up with doing this series as a whole on this channel, and possibly get into it. Yeah. So I hope you guys like, subscribe, and comment, and I hope to see you guys in next week's video. Bye bye for now.